Today's voyage takes me up the
Stepford Main Line
to
Westercoast.
This is on the northeastern section, known to us transport historian type people as the
Lynn by the Sea
extension. It lies between
Famere and Melcastle Racecourse.
The line was built by the Great
Stepford
Railway and it opened in 1932. This part of
Stepford
had railways, sure. UERL had introduced a new way of doing things. They owned multiple lines, but also bus and tram companies, and what this meant was that they could create integrated transport systems. It wasn't a case of buses and trams competing with rail, but feeding into it. This would become very important in the case of
Westercoast.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. While UERL was all about cooperation between its own modes of transport, it could be ruthlessly competitive when it came to other companies. The
Stepford
North Western Railway had experienced this firsthand. UERL had extended their
Upper Staplow
line to
Lynn by the Sea
in 1924. Then they introduced buses following the routes of the
Stepford
North Western as branch lines in the area. UERL were innovators, but they were no gentlemen. But there was a bottleneck.
Famere.
The station was overcrowded, so were the streets outside as people decamped to local trams and buses. The government gave the
Stepford
North Western an ultimatum. Upgrade your service to make it comparable with what UERL are promising, or stop getting in the way. Reluctantly, the
Stepford
North Western stepped aside in 1930 and Parliament granted permission for
Lynn by the Sea
the extension. UERL had also received a substantial loan from the government on the grounds that in the late 1920s Britain was suffering an economic slump and any project that could provide employment was likely to get the thumbs up.
Westercoast
It was initially a sort of depot for the project. The cast iron segments used to line the tunnels were stored here during construction. Frank Pick, the very hands-on assistant managing director of UERL, wanted to really show everyone else how it was done. He was the sort of man who, I imagine, gritted his teeth in frustration at situations like the one at
Famere.
The stations along this new extension were to represent the very best in public transport.
Westercoast
It wasn't just a tube station, but it would also include a bus station and tram stop. The tram stop is, of course, no longer there, but it could be directly accessed from the station. The station was designed by UERL's company architect, Charles Holden. This was his most innovative and experimental phase, inspired by modernist architecture in Europe.
Westercoast
Was the prototype for this new approach. Everything down to the lamp standards was Holden's work, although the decor was handed over to Harold Stabler. I'm not saying I don't like them or that they don't work, but they're not in line with the kind of streamlined simplicity that Frank Pick liked. Still, he certainly didn't object to that, or indeed to any feature at
Westercoast.
His instructions had been followed to the smallest, most obsessive detail, and the result was, in Pick's eyes, the perfect station. In 1938, the tram service was withdrawn. In some ways it's interesting that the tram stop was put there in the first place. By the 1930s it was clear that trams didn't have much of a future. Perhaps Pick figured it could be a bus stop or even a trolleybus stop in the future. But on the whole,
Westercoast
is the same station it's always been. This aside, though, there is no denying that it is a very good station that is, from my casual perspective, easy to use and pleasing to the eye. Which, for a station that's substantially as it was 90 years ago, is very impressive.